ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're gonna be doing something a little bit different than what we normally do. And some of you who are my patrons and channel members, you have probably seen me do something like this in the past, and I kind of stopped doing it, and the large reason behind it was because, I don't know, I felt like I was gatekeeping some, what I thought was very good information that everyone should probably have. A lot of my favorite comics I was talking about, a lot of people say, oh, Blerd, I never heard you make videos about these particular comics. You only make videos about X-Men comics. Well, that's because people don't usually watch the videos about the comics that, I typically like. So I figured what I do is I would compile all that information in this one spot, and that's going to be the best comics this week. It's going to be your one-stop shop, the rundown, the lowdown, if you will, on the best comics you can pick up in your LCS every Wednesday. And we'll also kind of intersperse some little information and stuff like that in between. But I'm just going to be talking about comics extemporaneously and just kind of giving you my take on these books and telling you why I think you should check them out for yourself. First and foremost on the list is going to be Absolute Superman #5. Absolute Superman is one of those books that, while I often say, and I feel bad for saying this because I feel like I'm always telling y'all that it's the third best absolute DC comic that's out right now, which I'm gonna be honest with you, it's about to fall to #5, and I'll talk about why towards the end of the video. So if you want to know what the new hierarchy is in the absolute DC Comics line, just stay to the end of the video. I'm gonna tell you all about it. But first and foremost, Absolute Superman. It's not to say that because it's the third best absolute DC book that it's a bad book. I don't say it for that reason. It's just that Absolute Wonder Woman and Absolute Batman, they're just that much more compelling. However, I feel like Jason Aaron really brought it home in this issue because in this particular one, Superman is looking for Peacemaker. Now, in this universe, Peacemaker is a job. It's not like one singular person. However, we were put on game just a couple of issues ago that the Peacemaker in question, who unalived the people at the mining station that was under Lazarus, that was in fact the Absolute Universe's version of the DC Earth Prime Peacemaker, Christopher Smith, and Superman is looking for him. He's trying to hunt him down, and while he's going through all that, he ends up, or rather not so much him, but his costume, his cape, has come into contact with Brainiac. In this universe, the cape that Superman wears, it's a part of an AI system that's also built off the dust of his planet and all that other stuff. But it also is an artificial intelligence in and of itself, and it was able to make contact with Brainiac. And I'm going to go into it right now, just based on the origin, that we get a lot more clarification on how Kal-El got to Earth and what happened to his parents, the ultimate fate of the rest of the Kryptonians. We learn what it is in this issue, and it is grim as it's grim. That's all I really want to say about that. This is going to be kind of spoiler light type stuff we're going to be doing on this. But yeah, you're going to find out what happens to them. And at the same time, you're also going to get a little bit of a hint as to who actually lived in Smallville. And it wasn't Clark. Let's just put it like that. At least that's what it seems like. I don't think it was Clark. I think we're going to learn that the Brainiac in this universe was the one who actually stayed with Ma and Pa Kent. Because I feel like, because once again, that was kind of the tagline of this comic, is that this is a Superman who didn't have the Kent family to raise him up. So yeah, it just makes that much more sense to me that it's very likely whoever it is that is Brainiac. And it seems like in this universe, and I've been saying this for a while, it seems like Lex Luthor is Brainiac in this universe. But let's get away from that. This was a solid issue. It was fantastic. It was fun. Once again, this is kind of one of those books that is really heavy on the social commentary, and it is, while in the previous issues, the social commentary has largely been focused on education, classism, the use of artificial intelligence to replace creativity and free thought. It is also this issue where, well, technically we've talked about environmentalism in these books. This particular issue is more interested in that as a topic because of the fate of Krypton. So yeah, I'm here for it. Next up on the list is going to be Black Lightning #5. This issue, I actually read this one a while ago, and it was great. I just couldn't say anything about it other than that it was great. I'll be honest with you. While I enjoyed this issue, there's not really a whole heap of a lot to say about it. It's not like there's any like groundbreaking, earth-shattering, information that is revealed that we have to dig into the annals of DC Comics past. This book wears a lot of what it is on its sleeve. And really the main mystery that is solved is what's up with Thunder's powers. Now, I don't really feel this is a spoiler because I feel like we kind of already seen it. What I will say is her powers are not what I initially thought they were. Initially, it seemed like she had just gotten the same powers that Lightning had. But no, she still has her superhuman strength. She still has her ability to manipulate her density. All of that is still intact, so there's nothing to worry about there. What she has added to her power set is that she now can be considered an electrical Negro. Originally between the group, the Pierce family, Black Lightning and Lightning were the electrical Negroes of the family. Thunder was the one whose powers had nothing to do with electricity. Well, now she is an electrical Negro. She now has the ability to channel electricity into an electric concussive force. That is the power we have been seeing her wield. And just like in the past where she could manipulate her strength and density control to send out shockwaves, she can now send out electric concussive shockwaves, which is just crazy. Crazy to think about. It's it's one of those things I have mixed opinions on because it's like, man, I love Brandon Thomas as a writer, but he is trying to make me a liar when I talked about how many electrical Negroes there were versus how many there weren't. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm gonna need you to stop it. You get this one. That's the only one you get. I'm joking. The other main thing in this is we finally get a little bit of clarity on what's going on with Jefferson and his connections to the power company. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that is in the fallout of this issue is all stuff that's going to pay dividends in April when we get to the power company Recharged, where it seems like Jefferson is going to be working directly with Josiah Power. And we also know that one of the key players in all this that has been basically, I won't say has been like directly involved with the proceedings, but has definitely been the reason why a lot of crazy stuff is happening. Councilman Harriman, who is connected to the original Sons of Liberty in DC Comics back in the New Earth era, well, he has been campaigning to turn all of the people in his constituency against metahumans. That's been his whole stock in trade since he was reintroduced in this Black Lightning. And we learn that his corruption actually goes a little bit deeper than just himself. He apparently also has some other connections out there that are also involved. And like I said, these are all things that I think will pay dividends as we get further on in. But yeah, with everything that is going on in this issue, with Thunder and with the Pierce family as a whole, we get to see the return of Grace Choi, the longtime love interest of Thunder, who they kind of like, they didn't make it seem like though she had just disappeared off the face of the earth, but it was very clear that for whatever reason or another, Grace and Thunder were not really talking as regularly as it would seem. And it seems like that is addressed here in this issue. Batman's attitude towards Thunder is also addressed this issue. And it's one of those things where I kind of feel like the way that Batman has handled this, like he spoke really greasy about Thunder just a couple of issues prior. However, it's one of those things too, and I kind of had to remind myself of this when I read this issue. If you go back and read the old Outsiders issues, Thunder and Batman have always had kind of a, I don't want to say contentious, but not necessarily polite history with one another. So it kind of seemed like Batman said what he said, not so much because he actually felt those things, but it kind of feels like he used his words to galvanize Thunder in such a way. Basically trying to use himself as a negative reinforcer to get Thunder to do what she needs to do. type of situation. It's one of those things. It's probably not my favorite aspect of this particular issue, but I can rock with it. It is what it is at this point. I will say it is bittersweet just because, the book is coming to a close, but once again, we got Power Company Recharge coming up. So I'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a moment. The next thing I actually want to talk about, and this is actually not a comic per se. I actually want to break up some of this comic talk with a segment that I kind of want to call shit of the week. I think that's what can we call that? I don't know if that's gonna fly, but that's what we're gonna do. This is something that I found very discouraging. I'm a guy who is very well in touch with the comics industry at large. I have developed relationships with people who work in the industry, and I have known a lot about the industry for a very long time. And this week, just actually as of this recording, yesterday, on Instagram, comic book artist Dustin Nguyen, and I may be mispronouncing that name. Yeah, I've often heard people say it differently, and I looked it up, got completely different. I'm just gonna say Nguyen and leave it at that. But anyway, comic artist, typically for Marvel, Dustin, put out a post on Instagram, a rather lengthy one. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm just going to kind of give you the broad strokes of it. Basically, that Marvel doesn't pay a damn thing. Actually, taking the picture that he put up, he basically said, basically to the tune of, also, everyone I'm not working with at Marvel can fuck themselves. I've asked nicely for the past 15 years on behalf of every artist, stop fucking creators over. You're not getting another cover from me until then. Drown me, I'm okay with your minimum wage bullshit. Like, once again, this is also followed with a very lengthy post that was put out, basically saying that between them and DC, they are the only one that doesn't pay a royalty for overseas sales. Think. America is the originator of superhero comics. Japan has anime, which we love. Europe has that cool ass shit we love but can't describe. And WTF, they're not paying creators a piece? Come on, fuck this fucking shit. Also, merch, lunchboxes, and teas, good luck. Now, I want to jump in real quick because this is something that actually came up during my time as a avid player of Marvel Snap. One thing I learned when I tagged a particular Marvel artist, and I don't want to put his business out there, so I'm not going to say his name, but I basically said, hey, it would be really awesome if we could get this particular image that they created in Marvel Snap for a variant. And I'll just put it like this. They basically insinuated to me that they don't get paid for Marvel Snap stuff, which is funny when you consider the artist art is what's selling these variant cards. At the end of the day, this is fuck shit. Marvel being the absolute worst when it comes to paying their artists, the people who ostensibly are responsible for why anyone buys your book. I mean, yeah, the writing is great too, but I mean, the comic book does not exist without its artist. So I find it incredibly embarrassing. Like, I have secondhand embarrassment for Marvel getting dragged like this because they're not willing to pay their artist a fair wage. And it wasn't just Dustin who went at them like this. Other artists came out in response to co-sign him, and not artists that you wouldn't know. I mean, once again, Dustin is a Eisner Award winning artist, so Dustin's work. However, people like Sean Alexander or Sean Gordon Murphy, Zoe Thorogood, Yannick Paquette, and Chris Stevens, there's lots of artists out here who, even if you don't know their name, you've seen their work. So yeah, Marvel, you make millions upon millions of dollars across multiple different revenue sources. You can scratch together the money to pay these people the living wage that they're asking for. Do better. Anyway, that's fuck shit. I'm just gonna leave the rest of their statement because I'm not gonna read through the whole thing just because it is a lot and we don't want to keep these videos terribly long, but it is something that we'll probably be talking about a little bit more on Nerds of Culture this Friday. Normally it's on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, but this week we have to move to Friday because my co-host Robo has a prior engagement he needs to get with. So, but we'll be doing it this Friday. We'll probably talk about it a little more there, so make sure you tune in. All right, now to get us back back into our comics talk. Our next one is going to be Transformers number 18. We are actually coming very quickly to the close of Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers series, and it has been a sight to behold. It's been a joy. I actually had gotten behind on some issues, so I read, I think, 3 or 4 Transformers issues. I think it was like 3 Transformers issues today just to kind of get back up to speed. But one thing I'll definitely say is it has been chef's kiss. Fantastic. We get to see a lot of things in this. We get to see, well, technically in the previous issue of number 17, we were introduced to a new Transformer by the name of Shredhead, and it's kind of an interesting thing that's kind of coming out of this, and I haven't really seen a lot of the discourse surrounding the introduction of this brand new Transformer, but one thing I can definitely say is that the language that was used to describe the character has basically been they, them, so it's very likely this character is a part of the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. I'm just speculating here, but it may also have more to do with the fact that the Transformer in question is the amalgam of a bunch of different other Transformer sparks, which are effectively the soul. Hence why that might also be the case. But we get to see Shredhead, who basically turns into a stoner van. Which I'll be here for. It's very much in line with everything that Daniel Warren Johnson is about. You know, he's a guy who's into a lot of heavy metal iconography. He's into a lot of wrestling iconography. And you see it a lot this issue too when we see the fight between Bruticus and Devastator, which has been a fight that's actually been going on for the past 2 issues, which I think is fantastic. We've just been watching them run roughshod across the states, and we get to see one of the most devastating maneuvers in the history of wrestling. And I don't want to say what it is because I don't really want to give it away, but just know that you can hit that bad boy from anywhere. And it was fantastic. I love to see it. But yeah, it was good. It was just good. We also got to see a little bit more of Ultra Magnus, who had kind of been on the outs with the Transformers following his, I guess, reintroduction to Shockwave just a few issues prior. And we also find out what the humans are up to in all this. Like, how are the humans responding to what is going on with the Transformers right now? And I'm gonna go to it right now. Not good. It's not good at all. As we saw where RC and Beachcomber were trying to get Ultra Magnus to see to reason, to realize that he can get past the PTSD from all the trauma he suffered at the hands of Shockwave, we learn in this issue that, yeah, Ultra Magnus is still struggling with it. And it's probably going to be a long time, especially based on what happens with the humans in this issue. It's probably going to be a real long time before he gets over any of that. And I think another thing that is also very important here is, and this is something we already knew about, Megatron returned just a couple of issues ago. And well, technically he has been back, but he has been out of commission. And we see that, just a couple of issues ago, he was back up and walking around, and now he is back. And while he's not 100%, like, yeah, he's still very much battle damage. He's still missing his arm, the very same arm that Optimus now has replaced his own right arm with. And he is back, and he has jumped into the middle of the fray between Soundwave and Starscream. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a fan of the animated series or any of them, not just the older ones, but any of the old Transformers comics, I'm going to tell you right now, what happens when Megatron walks up and sees Starscream and Soundwave engaged in what is effectively mortal combat with each other? It goes about the way you're probably going to expect. Next up, we're actually going to keep this in the Energon universe. Next up is going to be Void Rivals number 17. This issue is kind of a big one, and it's going to be very difficult to talk about this without spoilers, but I'm going to try in some ways, but there's just some things just based on a lot of the storytelling that's happened in the 17 issues, really the 16 issues prior to this one. It's going to be difficult not to. So I'm just going to go ahead and say right now, I'm actually going to try and put sections in this. So maybe it might make it easier to navigate if you want to avoid spoilers. But I'll just say this. The issue is great. Void Rivals has been one of the, I would say, most consistently good books has been coming out each and every week. Basically, what you need to know going into this, and if you have never read Void Rivals, I'll just put it this simply. The Void Rival series hinges on 2 rival species, the Agorians and the Zertonians. 2 species who as you would probably imagine, probably have more in common than they don't. But over the course of the series, this is kind of where I can't really not talk about spoilers, because by this point it's public knowledge. But in this series, these species realize they are not very different from each other at all. But in this, we learn why there are those few differences between them. And we learn that, you know, one of the names that's been coming up a lot over the course of this series is Zeta Trion, who is basically the god of the Zertonians, or really more so a specific faction of Zertonians. Well, we learn in this issue when Salila, who is one of the main characters, she went off on her own mission separate from the other main character, Derek, and she was trying to find Zerta, and she does. But when she finds Zerta, as she did in the last issue, she discovers the truth about everything. She learns everything about the history of the Agorians and the Zertonians, everything from before. It actually digs back into the history of the Transformers as a whole and explains why the Agorians and the Zertonians are so similar to the Autobots and the Decepticons, and why they have such a innate connection to all of the Transformers. It's all explained. We even get what is effectively a throwback to Optimus Prime pre-becoming Optimus Prime. We see Alpha Trion and, you know, all sorts of other stuff. There's a lot. There's a lot. But we also learn this while Salila is learning about the true grand design of Zerta. We learn that, well, other factions in this book, they don't have that information. On either side, whether it's the Agorians or the Zertonians, the Agorians are kind of following what is effectively warmongering and fearmongering. That's basically what drives their interpretation of the grand design. And the Zertonians are following religious dogma. So this is what is leading them to work in direct opposition of the very grand design that they think they're following. They're following the polar opposite of it. And it's very telling in this issue. All it's going to do is lead to the destruction of their species if Derek and Salila can't get everybody on message. There's lots of other little cool stuff in this too. We also get to see a little bit more of Goliath and what Goliath truly is and why he is such a threat. Like I said, it's really good. I don't know what else to tell you. It's a fantastic book. It's a fantastic book. Everybody should be reading it, especially if you're a Transformers fan. If you're a Transformers fan, there's no excuse for you not to be reading this book. All right, before we get into the last thing, this is something I kind of want to sneak in every now and again. Before we get into the number ones, I usually want to try and take a moment to prop up an indie comic, and I'm actually going to do that right now. And the first one is going to be Incognegro. Incognegro is a really awesome comic that I checked out during the Black History Month in stock trades Black History Month sale. This is a comic about a black man living in the early 1900s in, you know, Southern America, and he is a black man who can pass for white. Like, he is quite literally light bright and 2 shades from white. And while he could use this to live a life of privilege, he actually uses his ability to pass for white to spy on white supremacists, more specifically the Ku Klux Klan, and try to report on the things that they're doing and expose their lynchings and hate mongerings to the wider world, because he is also a journalist. I don't want to say too much more than that. I think the story itself is a lot better the colder you can go in, but just know that, yeah, this is a story that does not pull any punches about the types of activities that took place during, you know, the early 1900s, you know, in a what is effectively a post-slavery United States, but at the same time still an incredibly racist United States. I will say, if you're the least bit sensitive about those sort of things, I will go ahead and tell you right now, it is not going to spare your feelings on any of it. But I do recommend it, as it's a fantastic story. Last and most certainly not least is going to be Space Ghost number 10. Space Ghost is personally one of my favorite comics that has come out in the last year. This is a book that on paper should not work, and yet it does. I never had a whole heap of a lot of love for the character of Space Ghost. I mean, yeah, is he a cool character? Yeah, he's cool. And when I was a kid, I thought, you know, oh yeah, it's pretty neat. You know, he's like, a Batman Superman hybrid in space. Okay, cool, that's great. But I never really just was always checking for him. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of my interactions with Space Ghost as an intellectual property is largely from Space Ghost Coast to Coast, which this comic has nothing in common with. This is a very serious take on Space Ghost. And we have gotten to see reimaginings of so many different characters like Moltar and Zorak and so many others, the Creature King and whatever. But this time we're going to see a reimagining of what I think is actually one of Space Ghost's least talked about villains, and that's the Space Spectre. Now I know what you're thinking. That name sounds funny. It sounds like Space Ghost, and it's kind of the same thing. You'd be correct. Under normal circumstances, the Space Spectre was something that came from the Space Stars animated show, and Space Spectre is just an alternate reality version of Space Ghost in that series, and is basically, oh, this is Space Ghost if he decided to be a space pirate instead, and rob people and steal and all that other good stuff. In this particular instance, this is a very different Space Spectre. And in a lot of ways, David is channeling what I think is the best part of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. And that's all I really want to say about the Space Spectre to play, because this is not an alternate reality take on Space Ghost. This is a future take on Space Ghost. And it's done incredibly well. It is setting up a lot of really big stuff that like I've kind of gotten to see a little behind the scenes on Space Ghost, and I can tell you guys aren't ready for it. Even if you have been reading the series regularly, you are not ready. Okay, so with that, those are the best comics this week. And I'm going to right now, this is something I want to call this the pull box report. Can we call that the pull box report? We'll call it the pull box report. But basically what I want to do is kind of put you guys on game about some books that are coming up that maybe you might want to add to your pull box. First and foremost is there's going to be books like the upcoming Captain Planet series, also written by Space Ghost writer David Pepose. I highly recommend you go check out that book. There's also the upcoming Absolute Flash and Absolute Green Lantern series. You heard me earlier say that I feel like Absolute Superman is going to drop to the bottom 5 or to the maybe be the 5th best Absolute DC comic title. While I have Absolute Martian Manhunter, I'm gonna be honest with you, it took me a minute to kind of really warm up to it. I'm still kind of on the fence on how I feel about it. But I can definitely tell you, having read Absolute Green Lantern and Absolute Flash, I think those books are going to become a lot of people's favorites. That's all I can say about it. I can't give away any specifics on it because, NDAs. But I definitely will say those are some books you need to have on your pull list. You need to be checking out. That's it for me right now. You guys let me know what you thought about this. I mean, I guess how many people view this video will tell me a lot too. But, if you're still here, if you really want to help me out, you really want to see more stuff like this, share this video in all your favorite online comic spaces. Also hit that like button because it actually tells YouTube to recommend this video to more people. It really helps me out. By my general logic, I've seen whenever my videos get over 1,000 views, they usually end up doing really well. So help a brother out, hit that like button. And if you haven't already subscribed, consider doing so and hit that notification bell. So that way you don't miss out on any of my videos. Anyway, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the best comics this week. We out.